Hello, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch, and welcome to This Week in Game Devs, Week 16 for the week ending March 6th of 2016. Now, this is just a quick recap of the events of the last week in the world of game development, and without further ado, let's jump right in. Now, keep in mind, I do this every week. As I said, this is week 16, so if you're interested in more, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for next week's news. But anyways, this week's news, we've got HAX Develop was launched. Now, HAX Develop is an IDE for the Flash, for the HAX programming language, and it's based on Flash Develop. So basically, it's a fork of the Flash development project, tweaked and specifically created for working in HAX language. Flash Develop is a very nice language. The only really kind of big problem with that IDE is that it's Windows only, and nothing has changed here. The HAX version is still Windows only, unfortunately. But it's completely free and open source, so definitely one to check out if you're working in HAX development. Now, I should mention this, should have mentioned it earlier actually. For every story I've done here, I will link it down below. So if you want more details, the text version you're going to see up on screen is available in a link in the comments down below. All right, so continuing on. Next up, we had a pair of VR stories. There's always VR stories these days. It's the next big thing, I suppose. First off is the HTC Vive started for pre-orders. Now, HTC Vive is the VR headset collaboration between HTC, the phone makers, and Steam. And it priced itself at an eye-watering $800 US. Now, that includes two motion controllers, though, base stations, box, earbuds, pretty much everything you need to go. So the price is pretty much comparable to the fully kitted out Oculus Rift once it ships with its controllers. But $800 US, this is absolutely insane. So VR is going to very much be an early adopter technology, a huge early adopter technology, which is a shame. I was kind of hoping at this point it'd be priced more in the $300-400 range, and it would actually work on computers that, you know, mere mortals own, not super high-end cutting-edge computers that cost $2,000, and then another $800 to $1,000 on top for the technology. It's kind of a shame, but anyways, if you're interested in getting on the HTC Vive bandwagon, pre-orders have now begun. It's $800. You can also pre-order using Steam, which is kind of cool, actually. And in the kind of VR but not quite VR world, Microsoft's HoloLens also started pre-orders for developers today. Now, keep in mind, this is not anywhere close to a consumer release. They could be months out to years out. This is a developer unit only. And you also have to apply and be accepted by Microsoft to get in on this. And finally, it's $3,000. So this is not something to do lightly. But if you're looking at getting involved in the HoloLens, they do have developer kits starting to ship out in, what was the release date? I thought it was a month or two. But basically, the tech is ready to roll, but they are fulfilling pre-orders right now. But the actual time where this stuff is going to be available to consumers is still unknown. So don't think that HoloLens end-level stuff is going to be anytime soon. Probably not this year, in fact. But this is more of an augmented reality than a VR headset. I'm not sure if I'm interested in it or not, to be honest. I think I need to get my hands on one and actually play with it before I really jump in too far. Next up, we've got Cocos Creator was announced. Now, Cocos Creator is built on top of Fire something. It's an existing IDE out there. This is an integrated Cocos 2DX editor, world, scene builder, code builder kind of setup. It's a entity component system built on top of the Cocos 2DX library and a world level editor type thing. So it's very traditional component-based approach. If you're interested in learning more, I actually did, oh, you bugger, I lost the internet. All right, sorry about that. A bit of a technical outage on my internet here. But basically, I did a hands-on video available on YouTube. I'll link this down below. Kind of walks you through using Cocos Creator to create a game. Now, Cocos 2DX is a C++-based library, but in this case, it's actually using their JavaScript port. It's a neat project. It's early, so there's some definite key things missing. I walked through them in this video. So definitely, if you want more information on that, check it out here. But it gives you more of a Unity editor type experience, but definitely for 2D games. They can run in a browser, run on many platforms. It's a cool project. It's very young, but I think you'll see it mature pretty fast. So, as I said, I will link this video down below as well. Another change that happened this week was JMonkey Engine 3.1 Alpha 2 was released. And JMonkey Engine is is a Java-based 3D game engine. I've done a closer look at. There's a video available on my channel for it as well if you're interested in learning more. But one of the major things about JMonkey Engine is it's always been tied to NetBeans, a somewhat fringe, I guess, at this day and age, IDE for Java. It's the one that's it's now made by Oracle. It's not the most popular. Eclipse and IntelliJ are definitely more popular, as is Android Studio. So it's kind of getting less and less popular. And unfortunately, built all of their tooling and their engine tied directly into NetBeans. So you had to kind of download both together, and it made their release cycle very, very slow. Well, with JMonkey Engine 3.1, they split their 3D SDK out from their tools. So now we should see fast releases, and it will also be easier to use JMonkey Engine with your IDE of choice, be it IntelliJ, or if you're very strange, Eclipse, or any other tool, or if you wish, NetBeans again. But a lot of this development was specifically to decouple those two things, and it's a good move. It's not going to pay off. It's not a lot of prettiness in this release, but it is paving the road for those to be separate, and for us to start seeing much faster releases of the JMonkey Engine. Now you'll notice right here at the top of the story, I actually linked to that closer look at JMonkey Engine. So if you're interested in learning more, check the story out below, and there's a link there available for you. There's a couple of other fixes and new features, etc. in this particular release, but the biggest thing was that separation away from the NetBeans IDE. RoboVM 1.14 was released, which is cool to see because this is the first release since Microsoft bought Xamarin, and Xamarin in turn bought RoboVM a couple months back, or even a month or two back. Now, RoboVM is the technology used to run Java Virtual Machine or Java language, or Java VM languages on iOS devices. And this particular release brings us a couple new pods, aka plugins, specifically for billing or in-app purchases, as well as dialogues. And there's a couple of other bug fixes and changes as well, etc. But those two plugins are probably the biggest deals here. Next up, we see AMD released OpenVX. OpenVX is for computer vision, aka webcam detecting movements, etc. So think Kinect, but hopefully less awful. But basically, OpenVM is a OpenGL or OpenML style API for vision control. It's part of the AMD GPU Open collection. They've done their implementation of the OpenVX standard for vision-based computing. Next up, we have 3D Studios Max 2016 released Service Pack 3. A bunch of small changes, nothing really exciting in here to be honest, but if you're running 3D Studios Max, you might as well grab it. A bunch of bug fixes in there for you. Next up, we have Starling 2.0 was released. Now, Starling is a ancient or high pedigree, guess depends on how you want to look at it, Flash-based game engine. Probably most famous for, this is the language that Angry Birds was originally written in. So it's obviously somewhat tested and battle tested there. Well, it's been going on, the developer's been working for a long time on this 2.0 release, and it is now out. Some of the major additions in this were the way that the renderer worked, new mesh class in the background, as well as a render cache. Now, the render cache is going to make it a lot less CPU bound, as you can see by this comparison chart. And without explaining what this chart means, especially because we don't have a side axis showing exactly what the results are, lower is better. But basically, it's using a lot less CPU to do draw calls, so it's massively lowered down the CPU requirements of the library. So definitely an improvement there. And I think that's about it. So Unity patch 5.3.3 P2 was also released. Mostly fixes. Quite a few of them actually, but relatively simple release, mostly, as I said, all fix related. Now, a couple things I didn't actually do videos on, or text posts on, I'm not really sure why, but I did do videos about. First off is, again, my internet conked, so we're not where I want to be, but come on. Doesn't matter. You don't need to see the clip, but there's a video, I'll link it down below. It's called Project Rider. Project Rider was released earlier this week to people in early access. So this is a project that literally just shipped. You can think of it as pretty much a beta. There we go. So Project Rider is an IDE from JetBrains, the makers of IntelliJ, WebStorm, PHP Storm, Ruby Storm, or RubyMine, I forget which one they called it. etc., etc. They've made a number of cross-platform IDEs, and they're based around the same technology. And they also made the C# Visual Studio plugin for C# called Refactor, probably the best refactoring plugin for Visual Studio. And what they've done now is they've taken Refactor and they've taken their IntelliJ IDE and they've pretty much smashed them together to give us Project Rider. And essentially, it is a cross-platform C# development IDE. And even if you're thinking, oh, Visual Studio is good enough for me, check out this video because you might change your mind. It is, again, early access, so it's just coming out, and who knows what it's going to cost when it's done, or who knows how far away it is, but it is already about 100 times faster than Visual Studio. I like the IntelliJ IDEs. I've come to learn them and know them, and there's something that's nice about using the same basic framework or look or whatever for my HTML5 development, my Java development, and then I use plugins into IntelliJ to do things like Lua development, etc. And it's a great IDE with a lot of great functionality in it, and some of the best refactoring tools you're going to find, period. And good project management, GitHub integration, that kind of stuff, plugin supports, etc. Plus it runs on Linux and macOS in addition to Visual Studio. So if you are looking for a C# IDE for those languages. No offense to Xamarin Studio or Mono Development, but even in its early beta state, Project Rider is already your best choice on non-Windows. And frankly, Visual Studio is getting more and more bloated. Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, two very definitely separate things, but Visual Studio is starting to get very bloated and very slow. And you start using Project Rider and you see its code completions and its hints and its pop-up and how fast it's parsing your code, you will have a hard time going back to working with Visual Studio after. So if you're a C# developer, this is definitely something worth checking out. Right now you have to enroll to get into the beta, but they're basically giving keys instantly, or at least they were. So that's definitely worth checking out. And the last thing to mention is Blunder 2.77 Release Candidate 2 was released. Now Release Candidate 2 is probably going to be the final release. They normally do about a 6-week schedule, and we're sitting more at like 4 months now, 5 months between versions. So it was about 4 months ago that 2.76 was released, so 2.77 is very overdue. And RC2 is very far along, and I just shot a video of what's new in it, especially from the perspective of game development, and there's some really nice features. A couple of really minor ones are you can now do skybox directly in the viewport renderer using the default Blunder rendering system, which is nice. So that allows you to see your environment, map your skyboxes like you would see in a game directly in the viewport without having to fake it by creating and inverting a box, etc. So that's definitely a nice improvement. Another big one, a huge time and productivity saver, is now when you're in edit mode, you can actually use booleans. So you can subtract one object from another, you can join them together, etc. Now you used to be able to do this with operators, and there was a Boolean Tools plugin, which I've used, but I always kind of had issues with it. It always didn't work that great. Well, now it's built right in, and you can use it directly in edit mode. On top of that, now when you create your primitives, you can have it automatically create UV maps for them, which is going to be a time saver. And the biggest features in this one is the grease pencil. And the grease pencil has been updated with a whole lot of new features, especially the ability to use sculpting to modify your brush strokes. So you can easily push, pull, pinch, thicken and smooth the drawings you've done using the grease pencil, and the dope sheet or the animation functionality has been greatly improved too. So now you can do copy and paste, etc. in the timeline. So now the grease pencil is actually a somewhat viable tool for doing 2D animations in Blender, if that's your thing. So programs like Toon Boom are soon going to have a bit more of competition from this free program. Now its coloring system sucks, so they definitely need to have some improvement there. Right now you have to pretty much do one layer per color, which is obviously not a very efficient way of doing things, but you'd be shocked by how much the grease pencil can actually pull off. And I cover a lot of that in this particular video. So if you're interested in learning more, again, I'll link this video down below. And really, that's it. That is this week in game development. Nothing earth-shattering this week. Microsoft didn't buy any more companies. No major new game engines were released free by Amazon. No huge shocks from left field, but some nice, steady developments going on this week. And stay tuned for next week. Hopefully we'll have something even more exciting to report on. See y'all later.